Back in 2017, 5 years before Putin invaded Ukraine, the capital Kiev felt like a safe place and people went about their daily lives. I was travelling the country and joined a tour to somewhere that had always intrigued me, Chernobyl. If you don't know, on the 26th of April 1986, Reactor number 4 exploded at the Chernobyl Nuclear Power Plant near the city of Pripyat. People were forced to leave their homes and lives behind due to the high levels of radiation. Covered up by a secretive Soviet Union at the time, the true death count is unsure, but is a lot more than the 30 or so recorded. In fact, the cleanup after the fallout was much more deadlier than the initial blasts. What is left now is a ghost town that has been taken over by nature. The exclusion zone covers an area of 1,017 square miles. Leaving Kiev in a small minibus, it took a few hours to arrive at Chernobyl, stopping at various checkpoints along the way. I had my photograph taken with the Chernobyl welcome sign, a mosaic complete with hammer and sickle and the atomic symbol. We were given devices to detect the levels of radiation we were being exposed to. Before arriving in Pripyat, we explored a few buildings that had been frozen in time. This calendar and a newspaper date back to the early 80s. Reminders of the Soviet Union were evident in many places we went. The rooms in abandoned houses felt sad, and it was clear that people were forced to leave their homes and lives in a hurry. The items which were left remained due to the levels of radiation they held. We were told not to touch or take anything due to the risk it might have on our health. After all, the level of radiation was similar to that of Hiroshima. Nearby was a medical centre. Patient files and prescriptions were left in plain sight for all to read. Sinister looking metal bed frames occupied the surgery as if it was a set from a horror film. A statue of Vladimir Lenin stood proud in the morning sun. He was the founder of the Russian Communist Party. A Soviet-era mural of a Red Army soldier is painted on the side of a military base. It reads, "Have you enlisted as a volunteer?" This guy must have enlisted, although he didn't say much. We then drove deep into the forest, where a 150 metre high and 700 metre long metal structure stood. It was a missile defence system named the Duga radar, and was once one of the most powerful military facilities in the Soviet Union's communist empire. It was used to detect incoming nuclear weapons and was nicknamed the Russian woodpecker in the West because of the infuriating tapping sound it made, disrupting the shortwave radio transmissions. The next location was the nursery. Children's dolls were scattered on beds and windowsills, reminding you of what the place once was. Here is a collection of some of the dolls I saw. We had lunch at the same cafeteria that the power station workers would have eaten at. I had to pass through a machine which detects if you have safe levels of radiation to enter. Lunch consisted of rice, bread, omelette, salad and some kind of soup. It was nothing special but quite nice nonetheless. After lunch we went near the epicentre of the explosion. A sarcophagus now covers the reactors and seals in 200 tonnes of radioactive lava-like corium, 30 tonnes of highly contaminated dust, and 16 tonnes of uranium and plutonium. It took 2 decades to build and is taller than the Statue of Liberty. A Soviet sign greets you as you enter the city of Pripyat, in which the city has now been taken over by nature. Where there was once clear green spaces, paths and playgrounds, there is now a well-established forest. The housing block roofs are peering out from the top of the forest canopy. It's like something out of an end of the world film where a handful of people are the only people left on the planet. Here you see our guide showing how certain areas looked during the 80s, where it seemed well maintained and like a nice place to live compared to how it looks now. This was a cafe with beautiful stained glass windows. People came to enjoy a coffee and read, or to watch children swimming and playing in the nearby harbour. The only visitors since the explosion are that of explorers and wildlife, much like the rest of Pripyat. A large imposing hammer and sickle overlooks the street below. Street lights that no longer work are dwarfed by the trees beside them. Unnerving medical equipment sit randomly amongst the trees for no apparent reason, and window panes smashed from decay or perhaps urban explorers. A tree even grows through the staircase leading to an important looking building with an atomic symbol on it. There was an empty swimming pool with diving boards, the windows no longer in place, allowing the vegetation to sneak inside. It had broken tiles and graffiti on the walls. Also a sports hall where a game of football was just a memory from the past. There was no fresh food in the supermarket, just rusty fallen shelves, a lot of debris and a few empty shopping trolleys. We explored further into the surrounding buildings and found various Soviet murals and a room which had large portraits of important looking men. The penultimate location was somewhere I was excited to see, and perhaps one of my first memories of seeing Chernobyl on the TV. Maybe because as a child I was attracted to fairground rides, but as an adult the sight of seeing an abandoned Ferris wheel and motionless bumper cars felt strangely poetic. The golden autumn leaves which laid on the floor of the amusement park complemented the rust and paintwork of the Ferris wheel that overlooked us. It didn't disappoint. I don't know exactly what it is about abandoned places I like, but I think it's something to do with imagining that once upon a time people used to be there, enjoying those rides and having a great time. The final stop was a football stadium. You won't see football matches here anymore though, as a full-grown forest has now grown where the pitch once existed. As I was leaving to get back on the bus back to Kiev, I found a newspaper that had a photograph of Lenin on it, and then moments later a very tame fox stood beside me. Wildlife, it seems, has taken advantage of what Chernobyl has become, and I guess the lack of people was the reason why it wasn't scared of me. It's nice to know that even after a catastrophic disaster like Chernobyl, there are at least some elements of positivity.